Beyond.
Yeah, that's the name of the show. Welcome back to
got
Beyond,
startled.
everybody. It was a very exciting one. We had a little drum roll from our own musician. My name is Max Scoville. I'm here today with my good friends Andrew Goldfarb.
Hello.
Zach Ryan on the drums.
What's up? What's up?
And Alanah Pierce.
What's up?
And we were all like a little bit off, a little bit weird
Yeah,
because
bear with us today because it's gonna be
Yeah.
fast and loose.
E3 was either last week or 4 months ago. I can't tell which.
Nobody knows.
Or is it still going?
People during E3 kept being like, "What's your favorite thing that you saw?" And be like, "I've seen things."
Yeah.
They kept being like, "I don't remember any of it."
Because
Except
we were
when I
there-
asked you that one time, you're like, "Yeah, I've seen some."
we were there for like a week before, or like 5 days before the show floor opened, and I like halfway through the second day of the show floor, someone walked up to me and was like, "How's your day 2?" And I almost burst into tears. We had been there for like 7 days already.
No, we started early doing the whole live pre and post stuff for EA. There was tech rehearsals before that. It was just, I feel like ideally in a perfect world, E3 would get shorter as I get older, but I'm getting older and it's getting longer, and I'm just like, this is a lot.
I mean, with that Hitman event, like it started on Thursday and ended on Thursday.
But there was also like so many reveals that week leading into it, and then like I in a similar way, like a very nice NVC fan came up to me and was talking to me on the show floor, and at one point was like, "I mean, the E3 must be like a vacation for you guys," and it was just like, "Oh, I have to walk away now." It's like,
I mean, it's a funny dual thing because it is incredible. Like there are moments every day where I was like, "Oh my god, I cannot believe I'm actually like playing Kingdom Hearts or playing."
My favorite week of the year every year, but also the hardest week of the year.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Fall apart.
Yeah. Our friend Yusuf from Ubisoft described it as sleepaway camp for adults, which I think is just about the best description because it's like you have so many activities during the day and then you stay up all night with your friends.
Yeah. No, it's finals and spring break at the same time. So
That's
quite a lot.
really
So
good.
I don't want to sound like we're complaining about it. It was very cool.
Wonderful.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was an amazing week.
Most of this episode, we're going to talk about stuff we saw at E3 that we didn't get a chance to talk about enough. But really quick, a quick PSA. PlayStation 4 Greatest Hits are now a thing, which is awesome because it means you can get awesome games for $20 a pop. And that includes, really quick, here's the list: Bloodborne, Ratchet & Clank, Doom, Drive Club, Infamous Second Son, Killzone Shadowfall, Little Big Planet 3, The Last of Us Remastered, Battlefield 4, Uncharted 4, Project Cars, Yakuza 0, and Yakuza Kiwami, and Metal Gear Solid 5 Definitive Experience, and Street Fighter 5.
Those are some good video games.
That's a lot of good games.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And for $20 a pop, physical, that means that you can buy it, check it out. If you hate it, return it, trade it in, throw it at your friend, whatever. It's a nice.
I actually kind of miss the era when I don't remember what it was for PlayStation 3, but I know the Xbox 360 was classics. What was it for PS3?
I think it was Greatest Hits.
Greatest
Yeah.
It was still Greatest Hits. Well, I liked seeing it like physically in stores, being like, "Oh, this is a game that's like totally."
I hate it
It's
as
so
a
exclusive.
collector because it like the PS1 ones are like bright green and awful looking.
Yeah,
but
for
I
a long
still,
time, I had Final Fantasy VII with a big like green stripe down the
And
side.
that's like, you're a fake fan.
Yeah.
You didn't
But-
buy that at launch.
but-
You bought it later.
On the flip side, you're totally right. That's an incredible deal, and especially for people if you just bought a PS4 right now, and then all these games are only $20. It's incredible.
I mean, of this
they're
list-
every game you need.
I think
Of
it
this
even
list,
was a
like-
red banner on PS3 too.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it
on the
was,
top.
yeah.
Yeah. Of this
Didn't
list,
they
like
came in red
Bloodborne,
cases.
Ratchet and Clank, Doom, Infamous, The Last of Us,
Metal Gear Solid
Yakuza,
5.
like $20 for any of those games. That's
Yeah.
dozens
Uncharted
and
4,
dozens of
that's
hours.
so recent.
Yeah.
Like,
The
that's-
weird one to me is Killzone.
Very good.
Because Killzone is fine, but it's like it sold so well because it was a launch title, and
Yeah.
I don't really feel like there are that many people right now clamoring.
Do you
to play
think that
Killzone.
maybe like, oh man, everyone loves Gorilla.
Yeah.
Everyone loves that studio. The game sells so well. Let's just put them all out.
No, I feel like they always do that with launch titles. And
like Drive Club's the same boat?
They're also going to keep adding to this. Obviously, we're going to get Horizon at some point on there. But that's I don't know. That's such a nice sort of thing. Like when everyone's sort of riding high off of E3 announcements and big stuff, and it's like, I mean, if you're listening to the show and you don't have a PS4, well, it's a great time to get a PS4 because there's still so much stuff coming out for it on the way. So E3 happened. It was a grand old time.
Speaking of stuff coming out on the PlayStation 4.
So much stuff, so many things to talk about, and I figure we
Got
could
announcements?
just kind of go through and just talk about some of the stuff we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's let's just get it out there. Cyberpunk 2077.
That's a video.
Yeah. So,
What a demo! I generally think it's the best demo I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't really want to think too hyperbolically here, but like the only thing I can compare this to seeing The Witcher 3 behind closed doors at E3 2013, which was again one of those things that I walked out of and I was like, I don't have any gameplay to show you. We obviously got the trailer to go on, but like there's no they're so smart to show an incredible chunk of gameplay and then have it be a secret because everyone has to go out and sort of evangelize it and hype it up. And Also,
I think part of it is that they were one of the studios that got bitten with the way that The Witcher 3 looked before launch, and when it came out, they were like, "Oh, you downgraded it," and it's like fans were pretty mad about
pretty
that.
fantastic.
they're
looking
doing
game.
they're doing the exact same thing.
But I think they're worried about that.
Yeah.
They're worried about showing it off and then having fans be like, "It doesn't look as good now," and it's like they don't. When devs do that, they're not doing it on purpose. It's just that they've added more stuff in. The more stuff you add in, the more stuff you have to take out. So it's complicated.
No,
And
I
I
mean,
think that's probably part of it.
I think there's something really special about showing gameplay, like especially a good substantial chunk of it. They showed a 50-minute long demo. That is insane. That is a lot of game to show. And they were playing it, and it was like, here's this in action. It's not done yet, but bear with us. And everybody who watched it had to you have to take notes, and you have to mentally recognize the things that jump out at you. It's not as simple as being like, anyway, here's the gameplay, check it out,
Yeah.
So we gave this our game of the show for E3, coveted IGN award. Last year went to Super Mario Odyssey. This year went to Cyberpunk. And I saw a lot
Similar
of people.
games.
Yeah, very
a
similar.
lot of comments.
I saw a lot of people in the comment section being like, "Oh, how could they give a game of the show award to a game that didn't show any gameplay?" But it's like, we did see that gameplay behind closed doors, and I am hoping that it's one of those things like Uncharted did this a few years ago, where Uncharted showed that big chase sequence. They only showed half of it, and then they showed the rest of that demo BCD, and then, a couple months down the line, they released the whole thing. And I'm hoping that Cyberpunk does the same. I'm hoping that in a couple
some of it.
But
'Cause
like
we saw
to
almost
Max's
the power
point,
of
yeah.
gameplay. They could at least put some screenshots out.
But to
or
Max's
something.
point, like
They
the
did.
further
There are some
away that
screenshots.
you get from that demo, the more that you're gonna run into like the purple monkey dishwasher kind of situation of like, so many people are going to be talking about that demo that you're going to get further and further away from what that demo actually was, as people are like, I heard this was in it. And
There's already
plus it
things that I've
is-
forgotten that it's
Yeah.
And
we
is
should
a
talk about
demo.
what it is.
Like, and they've talked about it's not a vertical slice. They made it as part of the game. Their milestone was to hit the E3 demo, and they say it's a branching path of the game. Like, we don't know though. And like when I say it's the best demo I've ever seen, I literally just mean that. Like, I don't necessarily think that
Well,
reflects
and
on
our
what the final
award is
game
best
is.
of show. It's an industry award, and I had conversations with people about that. It's like, we're not saying it's the best game that's out because we don't know, but
Yeah.
for the best showing, for sure. And I had people from other studios, even Rod Ferguson from the Coalition was like, "How did they keep you entertained for 50 minutes?" And I was like, "Dude, they did."
Yeah.
There were multiple parts in that demo where people were like,
Yeah.
they're like gasps. So
It
why
didn't
don't
feel
we?
as long as it was.
I know. Why don't we talk about what we saw though? Like we're just like, let's talk about the conversation surrounding it. Like,
Yeah.
no.
So they start off showing character creation, which is a big part of this.
Yeah, which one thing I really like is a backstory. So it's like a text adventure like Firewatch where you get to choose what your backstory is and major things that have happened in your life, which I think is
And
really
like
cool.
childhood hero.
It reminded me a bit of making a character in GTA Online, where it was like you don't design your character, you design your parents. You don't do that here, but it's the same deal. Where it's like, okay, so who's your childhood hero? Why did you move to Night City?
Yeah.
And then you can also customize your character up, up the wazoo. and
We
everything.
didn't see that though.
And you don't pick a class. Like, I thought it was really cool that the way you kind of adjust to having certain traits is just by playing the game. And so, like, there are certain things that you naturally build up rather than choosing, like, I'm an engineer or I'm whatever.
But it's also not like experiential like Skyrim is. For instance, like you don't level up specific skills by utilizing them over and over again. Like whereas Skyrim, like you might get better with a one-handed weapon just by one-handing enemies. But in this game, it's very specific. Like you tailor your class or like the skills that you upgrade through it, like by visiting a doctor in a very Minority Report sort of way, where it's like, they talk to you about what upgrades you want, and then you undergo a procedure. And in our demo, it was like a cybernetic eye being implanted so that it changed the way your HUD worked. And like,
Right. So
it's really
let's
interesting.
come back to that, because the first person thing is something that's bugging a lot of people. Like they're
And
being
I
like,
don't understand why at all.
Because they haven't seen it in action, because it makes perfect sense.
I think there are multiple parts to that because I've spoken about this. So one is people who have motion sickness have trouble with first person. Max's fiance has a ton of trouble playing a lot of first person games. It's like it's a problem that I didn't really realize existed until I had sat next to Jen and been like, oh, like you get really sick. So that is a problem, and it cuts out like 10% of people can't play the game for that reason. And I get that. It's also because CD Projekt Red said that they were going to have third person as an option, and now they don't. So I understand that too. But for the most part, I think it's people not being able to. This is a game where you shoot people in small corridors. Yes, it's an open world, but that's what the mission structure is. It's not a game where you cast spells against a griffin in a field. So it's like, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think you're right in that seeing it makes more sense.
I think that also that it's a very claustrophobic game. I mean, you look at the fact that I'm sure that people are going to try to compare the size of the map of The Witcher with the size of the map in Cyberpunk, but it's sort of a moot point because this is going to be all about like, mega structures and
It's
hallways
a lot of
and corridors.
verticality.
And,
is really important.
Yeah, it's a lot more up than wide.
You're in like dense, overpopulated inner city and then rather than The Witcher, which is all about scenic vistas and these kind of these landscape paintings.
I think it makes sense to me.
You start the demo. Your character's name is V. Like that's the code name that they're using
like
in all the trailers and stuff.
or
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever it is.
So you start the demo inside your apartment, and one of the first things that you do is choose.
Do you start in your apartment? I think the demo starts in that where you go
Yeah,
into the naked lady.
Oh, you're right.
We're already like, whoa.
Yeah, you're right.
The demo started off. I was totally taken aback because I didn't realize this was a first-person game, and it also was just right off the bat very shooty. Like it's a first-person shooter, which I was like,
to me,
not what I wanted. But
that opening sequence. So the opening sequence is you're going in to find some sort of she has a chip. She's a woman that has a chip, and like her abduction has set off she's paid for a specific level of security.
Yeah, which exists in the Cyberpunk board game lore that I don't know a ton about, but basically the idea is that she's like a rich person who can afford this chip that someone is disabled, and it will call these like medics.
She's got Find My iPhone turned on for her brain.
Yeah. Right.
But these bad guys have hacked it so that the Genius Bar people can't come and rescue the iPhone.
And so you find her like in a bathtub of ice. Like people are obviously going to harvest like her cybernetic parts, and so like you swoop in, rescue her, and then like that to me felt like a cold open for the demo because there was this incredible sequence where like you're using your cybernetics to look through a wall and shoot an enemy through a wall, and
that was the first gasp in our demo, which is interesting because other games have done someone shooting,
but
through
it didn't
a wall.
Look like. The way that like the plaster and stuff is like splintering
even
off.
Even for him, it seemed like the guy who's shooting you on the other end with this heavy weapon that he has is shooting you because he has an enhancement he can see through the wall. And so you got to figure out how to get around him without him seeing.
And that's the thing about the demo. Like a lot of the stuff in there is games or movies have done, but everything about it feels so smart and contextual. And like
the thing, sorry to interrupt you, but like the thing that caught me was like, in those other games, that would be those games' thing, right? Like, this game is so cool because you can shoot through a wall, or this game is so cool because you upgrade your parts like this. This game is all of those things wrapped into one.
This game, I mean, from what I've seen, what fascinates me the most mechanically is how it's taking systems we've kind of taken for granted and it breaks them.
Yeah.
Like to talk to the augmentation part, like basically after you do this whole rescue mission and everything, the way you complete the mission as opposed to just go talk to one person and then you get points and the mission's over, success, whatever. You take this lady outside and this flying ambulance shows up and this like terrifying SWAT team gets out and they're like, step away from the woman. This is our client, whatever, get away from her. And they put down this weird fold out stretcher and they're like, place her right there. And they've got guns pointed at you and you like, I'm sorry, I'm like spitting. I'm so excited about this. And they're just like, put her down right there. And it's like, they don't know if you're a threat or not. And I think in that situation, you could basically like be like, screw it, I'm going to break the rules and they shoot you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like at any given moment in that demo, I more so than a lot of RPGs that I played, I felt like you were always looking at 16 branching paths, right? Because it's like in that instance, it's like, okay, so what if I just jump off the side of this building with this woman and then like sell her chips to somebody else? Like there's so many options embedded within like what they're showing right in front of your face.
And that's where it's like, and I think you nailed it earlier when you were talking about sort of the structure of it. It's not GTA, right? Like it's open, but it's not that open. But the way it's open is in the structure of the missions themselves. Like I feel like
that's going to be Witcher inspired. It's like, The Witcher 2 did it and 1 did it a lot more than 3. And I love all of those games. But basically you can finish The Witcher 2 without ever fighting the final boss. You can just straight up never actually have conflict with him by doing things in the right order or having your conversations with him go the right way. And this feels like more inspired by that, which I think is really cool.
I think
when the demo, like without spoiling what it is, but when the demo ends, they're like, we also could have done this, 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 and this. And it's like completely insane because each of those paths would have completely changed.
So there's that follow-up part where later on there's a mission where you are doing something for one of the kind of crime lords in the city, whose name is Dexter, and you are sent to get a robot for him. He needs this like little spider bot that can like climb on walls and stuff. And you go, you're supposed to meet with a company called Militech beforehand, and you meet with Militech, and there's a dialogue options there. And there are like at least 4 things you could have done in that one situation with Militech. And then you go to the place that has the spider bot, and there are 4 ways to enter that building. And it's like, how different could that one side quest have been?
Yeah.
There's a part when you basically go to this den of these scary hackers, and you've got your buddy with you, who's the guy with the top knot, kind of the samurai looking dude. Yeah. And he's making a scene, like he's being like kind of like a pain in the ass for these guys.
Well, he's not sitting down. That's
what I love is he's like standing up.
They're
like sit down on the couch, and they're pointing guns at you, and he's like, yeah, what if I don't want to sit down? And they like point a gun at him, and you have the dialogue option to be like, either just Jackie, what's wrong with you, or sit down. And what I love is that in this situation, normally in games, I feel like your character would just say, sit down. In this case, choosing the sit down option, she stands up and she puts an arm on him and she's like, you need to sit down. And it's that level of like keeping, and I mean, to stress the immersion is sort of, I feel like it doesn't, you got to see it to really get it. But there's so much stuff in there that's, it keeps you in the world. Like it reminds you that you are part of this.
And let's not forget, like the men or the people that you're dealing with are basically a cybernetic cult. They're people that want so desperately to be machines that they've modified their bodies to like extremes. And so like they literally have their faces cut off and have like robotics implanted just floating in their face.
And the design, like that's the thing, like the aesthetic of this game is so, it just feels so perfect of everything I've ever seen of Cyberpunk. And like, honestly, for me, like, I think exactly what you're talking about, the agency that you have as a player kept impressing me so many times because there is a lot of branching dialogue and there are all these cool different paths that you could take, but they never feel like they feel so much more robust than I feel like a lot of other games that do that.
My favorite was when you'd be in the middle of a dialogue option and another one would pop up. Like if you're basically, depending on what you say, maybe you say something that gets a gun pointed in your face, and the second the gun's in your face, you've got the option to grab gun, which is basically like, oh, we're not talking anymore, we're going to start shooting each other. And it's that feeling of like, oh, this is giving the player like the option. They're like, you might get killed. You might just get your ass kicked.
And I
here.
imagine that that's very similar to how the level system is going to work, in that it seemed like we said, you get that optic upgrade and then it changes the way that you view the world and the way the HUD looks. And I imagine everything like that is going to be a conversation, a decision you made to get one new thing, and then a change to the world, not just like plus points to defense.
Right.
Yeah, and it's such a cool thing. Like, I mean, I think we kind of briefly touched upon it, but like the HUD doesn't, like, you can't see how many bullets you've left in the first part of the demo, and then once you get that eye implanted, that's just one of the features of that particular optic model, and then you can see how many bullets
the whole upgrade situation. Like, we're so used to, like, I don't know, in a video game you upgrade your character, like you go to a menu, like look at The Witcher, like you want to put on his cloak or you want to give him new wizard powers, you go to a menu and you push a thing and that's it. Like, it's part of a menu.
I think
in this
that
case
level menu kind of sucks, actually.
Yeah, no, I'm not wild about it, but in this case, in Cyberpunk's case, you go to this doctor and you sit down in the chair, and it's like being at the dentist, and you're making small talk with him the whole time, making fun of how he's like acts like you're the dentist. And the way you choose the options you're getting put in is that he slides this like iPad in your face, and then your character is navigating on a virtual menu that is part of the world you're in, as opposed to it being just a menu screen that pops up in your game. It's that level of like keeping you in there.
And just even having that conversation beforehand. Like, you don't just walk in and it's not like you go to a storefront and it's like, yeah, welcome, and then a menu pops up like in Persona or whatever when you walk into the weapon shop.
Even when you walk in there, the thing that impressed me most about environments is how dense they are. But when you walk in there, there's a lady who's like, yeah, she's ready for you. He's in the back. And it's like, it's all like perfectly just like time for you to walk in. And then he's like, hey, what's up? And there's so much for you to look at in his room, because the interesting thing about the lore, like anyone who's played the board game will know about this, and I didn't. I just read up about it. He's a Ripperdoc, which is a combination between an engineer and a doctor, and there are a ton of those. And I think that he was a legal one, but they have like tons that work on the black market, so you can get like military tech. And I imagine that's a decision to make, that if you get more illegal tech, that Militech will respond to you really differently, because they'll be like, well, you're clearly equipped with all the stuff you shouldn't have.
And that's where like it, I said it earlier, but it reminds me of so many different games. Like, there's definitely a little bit of Dishonored, a little bit of Fallout, a little bit of BioShock, and then there's definitely a little bit of Blade Runner, a little bit of
Deus Ex.
Yeah, like there's just so much to it, and I do feel like that aspect of it, of like the allegiances, feels very like New Vegas to me. Like, because it definitely feels like you can alienate one side and screw yourself in some ways.
I'm curious how there's a lot of things that I don't know about. Like, there were a lot of cool things that we saw in the combat that were really impressive, like having that blade being stabbed into the wall. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, so like if you go back to like Mantis Blades or something, like if you go back to the original Cyberpunk teaser from 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago,
13. God.
The woman that you see at the end has these like Mantis Blades like coming out of her arm, and like that was such a conceptual thing that I didn't expect to see them in this demo. And then at the end of the demo, like V pops open this Mantis Blade, does a wall run, stakes into the wall, like watches her enemies, and then does like a drop and kills one of them, and then whips out a gun and shoots the other one, in like one fluid motion. And that was the moment in our demo where people were like, holy.
Yeah.
And then
I had to leave early to go to my Cyberpunk interview. I missed that part.
It's so crazy, because then like there's also a part where you hack into a guy, access the network, and then you can cause a guy's weapon to jam, who you haven't even encountered yet. Like, it's like, God, it's so like, it uses all of the technology and all of the different options you have in such a just smart way. I feel crazy talking about it without people having seen it.
That's what I wanted to say is that the thing that I don't know about is I was really impressed by a lot of stuff. I'm really impressed by the world. That's why I'm excited about this game. That's why it feels like the future of video games. It feels next gen, as cheesy as that is. I have no idea if I can say the combat is good or not. I really don't know. I feel
Without
like I
having
need to
touched
try
it.
it myself.
Well, and
I agree.
also, I mean, you and I had not an argument, but we had a very long discussion about you weren't particularly wild about the dialogue and the writing, whereas I thought it felt like very on brand for a Cyberpunk thing, like the way that they were like using all these like shorthand idioms and calling each other like weird, hacker names and stuff. Whereas you thought that was like a little cliche, right?
Yeah, and seemingly a lot of people that I've spoken to have felt like either one way or the other as well. Like I think that people are really split on the writing. I feel like the writing in it is very cliche. It's a lot of just like, wait, sit down, man. Why you think stand it up? Like it's just everyone's just like, sit down, man.
Oh, got it.
Everyone's just so like aggressive and gritty, and everyone talks the exact same. And I really except
Cyberpunk,
Jackie.
though.
Yeah.
But it's so much so that I think that just based on this 50-minute demo, everything's going to be totally different when the game comes out. It's so much so Cyberpunk that none of the characters are distinct or interesting, and it's like you have to make them different people. Everyone was just like, you f me over, I'm gonna f you over. It's just like give us some differences there, man.
I think looking at sort of how they first reveal The Witcher, like, there's a lot of very tropey stuff in there too. But I mean, then you keep playing The Witcher and it gets weird and it goes off the beaten path, and there's so much stuff in the side stories and side quests and everything.
But a lot of the people who wrote The Witcher have moved on from CD Projekt, and I think that's probably part of my.
As far as the corniness goes, I will totally give that a benefit of the doubt because like if you go back, like
they gave us an option to give feedback, and I gave that feedback. Like on the note, I was like, I think the writing is cliche.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is very much cyberpunk rooted in 80s cyberpunk fiction.
Yeah.
It very much feels like that. I hope that there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek stuff in there. But if you go back and you read original William Gibson or like Neuromancer, Burning Chrome, Johnny Mnemonic, any of that stuff, it's so corny. Like it's so like there's so much. Hey, you're gonna jack into that Ono Sendai cyber deck.
Yeah.
Like come on, Deke, we got to get out of here. Like there's all these like stupid ass nicknames.
That's all I want, and I think Jackie was pretty likable.
Yeah, I think we'll find him in there. I wanted to real quick just recommend some Cyberpunk reading materials for everybody. Neuromancer by William Gibson is kind of the original, like the go-to Cyberpunk Bible, really good. Burning Chrome is a collection of short stories he did that are also mostly in that universe. Mirror Shades is a anthology of Cyberpunk stories that has some Gibson in it, a bunch of other stuff too. Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson is sort of post-cyberpunk-ish, but it's incredibly self-aware and very funny.
Snow Crash is a book that's been on my like to read list for years. I keep meaning to read it.
If Neuromancer is like the hard-boiled kind of original like thing that really pulled it off, then Snow Crash is like considerably sillier and much more of like a junk food kind of like action movie. The main character in Snow Crash is named Hero Protagonist, and if you can get over that,
Never mind.
If you can get over that, it totally works. You just got to kind of
Far Cry Blood Dragon. It's exactly what that is.
It's pretty silly. He's a pizza delivery guy, but he's also a hacker and a ninja. It's
very Blood Dragon.
It's a little bit weird. But yeah, no, I'm so excited about Cyberpunk.
Yeah, we could talk about it the whole episode.
Yeah, let's move on a little bit. We can. There's some other stuff too, though. Ghost of Tsushima.
Incredible.
Well, yeah.
I was very interested when they revealed it at Paris Games Week last year. And I actually, one of our editors couldn't make it to her demo, so I sat in on the BCD demo and was just absolutely blown away. I mean,
and this is like the demo they showed. So our BCD was the exact same demo as what they showed, but like if you're watching the video version of this podcast, this open world part when you're on a horse, like they were very clear. This is like very much a Sucker Punch sandbox open world game. Like this isn't. I think a lot of people saw them in that little forest corridor and saw the combat and were confused about what the game is, but the whole demo during the press conference is actually a side quest.
Yeah.
So this whole demo is not part of the critical path at all of the game, and what it does do is show you a lot of sort of the cool different ways this game plays out. They, without actually saying it, they very heavily imply that like this demo focuses on the katana, but you will get other weapons and like
it's so good looking. Like it might even be better looking than God of War.
So
it's crazy.
One of the funniest things, like one of the funniest moments that happened on our live show was like we had I believe the lead designer of this game,
Nate Fox, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Director,
yeah, creative director. So he was on with Damon, and like right out of the gate, Damon was like, "All right, first things first, is this a PlayStation 4 game or not? Like this looks so good." And he was like, "Yeah, this is 100% a PlayStation 4 game."
And and it's so funny because like the BCD, they played it in photo mode, so they could kind of stop and zoom in on things and go full, go like a full like zoom in or go like a full 360 degree shot of what's happening. One of the things I think is cool So the character you play as a guy named Jin, and he has been nicknamed the Ghost of Tsushima because this is based on the real life Mongol invasion of Japan.
He's the last of 80 samurai.
So that's the thing. It's almost like that 300-esque thing that like the whole island has been basically wiped out, but this one guy, there are thousands of Mongol invaders, and this one guy they cannot kill. And so he has this like this game's very grounded. There's nothing, crazy or fantasy about it, but to the Mongol invaders, he has this like semi-mythological status of like, we just want to take this guy down, and he's been nicknamed the Ghost of Tsushima. And what you do playing as him is survive. And the way that you survive is by moving past your samurai training. And that's like, they were really clear that that's in the ideology and in terms of the combat.
So yeah, one of the things that they really stressed was like their desire for like real historical accuracy. And if you're a samurai in feudal Japan, like you walk through the front door of your enemy's house and you're like, I'm here, I'm from the house of X, I'm here to fight you, right? If you're a samurai. But the thing about Jin is he's in a position where like he doesn't have that option anymore. Like there's no reinforcements, it's just him. So the way that he has to adapt to fight this like Mongol invasion is like he really has to figure out, okay, so do I rely on my like lifetime of training in this one discipline, or do I break and bend my own rules and like climb up the backside of a house and figure out how many people are here?
And not even
Samurai ninja.
Exactly,
well, he
yeah.
is, because not even just climb. Like one of the things they were talking about that's an obvious
If you're a
anachronism
samurai.
is that he uses a grappling hook, which is obviously not a samurai weapon. And
It's a very sucker punch thing to do.
They heavily implied it's going to be a lot like how Delsin gets new powers in Infamous Second Son. Like as you progress through this game, you will get new abilities that will change traversal, that will change combat. And I think it's really, really cool that they're basically allowing themselves to be accurate within reason. Like they want to be historically accurate, but it also has to be a fun game.
God,
I
so
forget which outlet it was in my demo, but somebody asked a really smart question. Like, hey, this is an open world game. It's a sucker punch game. We're looking at a lot of like open world type activities, like especially considering that this whole thing is a side quest. Like, what are we expecting in terms of character progression? Is there like a full status, like stats and an RPG level style system going on here? And in my demo, the guy was very keen on sort of sidestepping it, but he was like, I will say that it is 100% an open world game, and it comes with all the open world trappings that you would expect from that. So that means that there's obviously some sort of level progression and some kind of leveling system, which whatever, every action game has that now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me because of the way that they've laid out how this character interacts with the world around him. Like, how you choose to level, I think, is going to be really important in this game.
Yeah, and they definitely want it to feel like because they said that during ours, that they want to feel like your Jin the same way it felt like your Cole or your Delsin. I do want to really quickly rattle off the most common questions I'm getting. Yes, there will be a HUD. They did confirm that.
Yeah.
This demo, they completely turned it off. There will be a minimal HUD. They said they're talking about doing something like what God of War does, where you have like an immersive mode, but there's definitely going to be some kind of minimal HUD. Mm-hmm. Also, it will ship. Our demo was completely in Japanese with no subtitles.
No subtitles.
It will ship day and date with the Japanese voice track, or you can obviously play English. They're recording both.
That is like a huge relief for me, just because I feel like the American accent just immediately took me out of it.
Well, and they're also doing this really, really cool thing where even though 99% of the cast is native Japanese speakers, they still hired a dialogue coach to make sure that modernisms aren't creeping in. So they're doing this really smart thing of like all the kanji displayed on screen is ancient Japanese writing, and they're being, I mean, like they say they're being careful, right? Like I don't know, I'm taking them at their word. I don't know enough about it, but it does seem like they're trying to treat it with.
I thought you were
a ton of
fluent in
respect.
ancient Japanese.
Yes,
That is like a really hilarious attention to detail.
yeah,
It's wild because
They got criticized for that with Infamous Second Son. So
Yeah.
I
True,
understand why
true.
they would be on top of it this time.
exactly. I think they took that feedback really
it's
seriously.
wild because like I hadn't considered just how impactful it would be to like see it in Japanese without subtitles, and the inference that happens in your brain when you're watching something, like you're watching something in another language. I could see myself playing through this whole game on a first run in just Japanese with no subtitles and just trying to pick up like what the story is really about, and then going back through and playing it a
poetic
second
and
time.
nice.
Yeah.
I do.
This-
Also, look
This
at the way
shot
the
is
leaves.
so
look at the way the
beautiful.
leaves move under these guys' feet.
Well,
when
So
they're
I
fighting.
actually
So
asked
rad.
Nate. So the thing that sold me on this, I was interested in it. And I was like, I'm interested in all of these fall games, but I'm, don't know what this one is. And then I saw the combat and I was like, it looks like Arkham, and now I am completely sold on it. It looks so Batman. The fact that he has a grappling hook is so
Recurring theme
Batman.
this year.
Yeah, and
But
they're
I did
doing
ask-
like if you look at the ground, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, like their three tenets were mud, blood, and steel, and like the way that you affect the world around you, and like the previous combat before this part, when you're fighting the dudes in the mud pit, like your pants are getting dirty and stay persistently dirty. Like they are very careful to like the environment.
How much we're
affects
freaking out
you.
about that this year. Like Resident Evil 2 has the same thing. Like you shoot someone in the face and the face stays shot.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like Arkham did that forever ago. It's,
Yeah.
it's cool though. But I did want to say it looks like there are stance changes. And I asked Nate about it and he was just like, we're not commenting on that at this time.
They've gotten to that duel that you see at the end. Is a little bit like, because I asked, is that like a boss fight? Is that in an arena? Can you just run away? Like, how open world is the game? And they were like, they do want that to kind of serve that purpose. Like, if you find kind of a worthy opponent, it is very much like in samurai culture. Like, you will have a duel with that person that is markedly different than when you're fighting like a gang of 12, nameless grunts.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll do like they were keeping it really close to the chest as far as like, is that literally a boss fight? Are they gonna have a big health bar, or is it something like stance changes, or is it just a combat? Like, can you just climb away and not deal with it?
He also talked a lot about how it's not an easy thing to do, but there is like a perfect parry system in the game where like you can. Like you see it in that first demo where and they didn't call it a perfect parry system. Like let me rephrase that. But he's like, it's very difficult to do, but you can take enemies out in one hit like that, where you'll sidestep at the perfect moment and then like slice up and kill somebody instantly, which is like a very samurai thing to
My
do.
favorite thing.
But it's also like in that photo mode demo, they would pause it at the right moment, and he's like, pay close attention to this, like the way that blood spatters in that game, like. He rotated the camera so that you could see like the blood coming out of this guy, and it was literally individual blood drops, and the way that they hit the ground and splattered across the ground, like it was.
Is it
someone's
crazy
job to
impressive.
make that work.
Yeah.
Is it realistic in the way, like, is it realistic to actual blood or to samurai movie blood? Because those are very different
Probably
things.
the latter, honestly. They talked about Kurosawa almost as much as they talked about the
lot,
game
yeah.
itself
Okay.
in
I
our demo.
desperately
Yeah.
want a black and white mode for this.
Well, that would,
I
yeah,
know.
I think
Just film grain.
that would be really
Yeah.
cool. And I also think, like, the one thing that would be interesting if they did a black and white mode, the way they indicate side missions is with those leaves, which is a really subtle, really cool way to realize there's something down a certain path. It would be really cool to do almost like a Schindler's List style thing where it's black and white, but there's like leaves that are orange or
That's
just something
cool.
subtle that tells
you
you.
should
where
make
you're
a video
I
game.
just want
Yeah.
black and white. I want more games that are just black and white.
Like
agree.
the game Black and White? You just
no,
want
no,
Black
nothing,
and White
nothing
too?
like that. No, thank you.
going. Pokemon Black and White? Dude,
No,
they
it
actually
was-
made 2 of those.
I was just watching Lone Wolf and Cub this weekend. You guys ever seen those movies?
Yeah.
There's so much blood. It's so awesome.
Oh, I was
So-
gonna be like, that sounds cute. Is that like a Pixar?
No, it's like
Oh.
this. It's like this murderer who has a baby in a wheelbarrow, and they go around, just cuts up dudes in
Well,
half.
I
It's
saw
great.
Hereditary
Good
this
time.
weekend, so
Yeah, I probably had a lighter weekend than you. Anyway, moving on into the deep and dark and cerebral and whatnot. Remedy showed off a brand new game called Control, one of the few things that we had no idea would show up at E3. Yeah.
yeah, it was previously Project
P7.
P7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all kept being like, "Oh, it's Persona 7." Now we know it's called Control, and to me, you got to see this, and I'm sad that I didn't actually.
too.
It looks like a solid mix between Alan Wake and Quantum Break.
See, I like this because it doesn't look like anything I'm familiar with.
Oh, interesting.
I can see why you'd say that. Shoot.
Do you guys never played Psyops on PlayStation 2? It reminded me a lot of Psyops, which
it
is
also
a game
looks
that
kinda
like
Inside.
it's a game that combines a lot of like gunplay and
I mean,
telekinesis.
no,
and stuff,
mechanically,
yeah.
it looks like plenty of stuff I've seen before. It's very clearly, I mean, it looks like Alan Wake and Quantum Break and also Max Payne in that, you're messing
it's
around with
almost like
physics
they
and
have
stuff.
something in common.
They have something in common, yeah. But no, in terms of Inside,
looks
I
like
can very
Inside
much see.
so much, right?
Yeah. But I talked to them about that, and I was like, this doesn't immediately read like it's based on a movie you guys saw or a TV show you guys are watching. Like, what are you pulling from? And clearly there's a lot of MC Escher stuff
It's
going
far
on,
out.
Yeah.
which is awesome because not enough games borrow from traditional art.
So cool.
And they said they were influenced a lot by House of Leaves and by Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation trilogy, or what's it called?
Yeah.
Wow.
Area X or whatever.
Wow.
Which I could very much see.
Southern Reach.
The Southern
Southern Reach
Reach
trilogy, yes. Which the first movie got loosely adapted, but not very much. I mean, it was very much kind of a different movie entirely. But the fact that this is like that they're pulling from enough of that. It's pulling from stuff that's sort of maybe not immediately familiar.
Sorry, Dad.
It's the same. It's the same thing that grabs me about Death Stranding, which I feel like we've kind of talked about ad nauseum. But
Sure.
it's just the fact that it's like I don't know. They could just be like, here's a lady with a gun and powers, and use a gun that we've seen before, and use a lady that we've seen before. But instead, it's kind of like, here's a lady who can cover with her powers, and she doesn't seem like she's great at it, and her gun looks like it's, I don't know, something out of Prometheus, and the place that she's in looks sort of like the place from Inside, but also it transforms. So
the location is what has me most interested in it. Like, I know that Remedy can make games that, I don't like Alan Wake that much, but I love Max Payne, and I liked Quantum Break. I know that they can make games that are really fun to play, that have very interesting mechanics. Alan Wake's mechanics are really interesting, but it's the environment and what she was going through that makes me like, hold up, what's going on in this world? How am I going to find out what's up there?
And the narrative lead for this is this woman named Anna who worked on Dishonored: Death of the Outsider.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, she's got some chops there. Yeah. And God, I don't know, like everything they showed me, kind of coupled with what they said during our interview, I was just like, yep, I'm very much interested now. So
did they give an indication of a release date? I've been working on it for at least
2019.
2 years. So.
No, I just said next year.
I think they've gone on record a couple times saying that it is coming next year. Yeah,
I think
and they also said I heard an interview.
Hell of a year. Is it going to be February 22nd?
God, I hope not.
Hope so. I heard an interview with the narrative lead on. Oh God, I forget now. But she was talking about how she'd heard a lot of the feedback from Quantum Break about how overall fans were just like not super stoked on the story and the amount of like cutscenes that were sort of like shoehorned into that game.
Like 40 minutes of TV.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked it, but I get the criticism.
And so she says that like that's a huge focus of them in the development of this game, is like telling the story in a way that's not like sit down and watch this, like a lot more like environmental storytelling.
I also really like, it's such a marketing thing, but I really like when devs make a point by, like, it was cool that this was in the PlayStation conference and not the Microsoft conference, because I really like when they sort of make a point of like, hey, this is a multi-platform game.
Yeah.
And like that's such
why
a good
Shadows
way to
Die Twice was at the Microsoft conference.
Exactly.
These studios that usually pair with one being like, no, we're on everything.
But that's what's so interesting is
I know,
like Dark Souls was super heavily a Microsoft game, even though it's on both, whereas Bloodborne is obviously a Sony game. So like that, man, from teaming with Activision and being on the Microsoft stage, probably the most unexpected.
So that was
the
thing
show.
that like I found that out before the conference, and that was the thing that made me like, oh my God, what is this E3? Like that blew my mind.
I love how like FromSoft, everybody.
Sekiro?
Yeah, Sekiro.
Sekiro, yeah.
Shakira.
Shakira.
That's the one.
Yeah.
No, but I love that like FromSoft, everyone going in.
That I'll say off microphone.
Everyone was
later.
just like, hey, we're gonna get Bloodborne 2. We want Bloodborne 2. That's what that pulley game is. The Shadows Die Twice. It means Bloodborne. You're dying twice. Get it? And then they show up and they're like, hey everybody, we've got some great news. We've got something you've never heard of. We're partnered with Activision. That's weird. We're remastering Metal Wolf Chaos with Devolver. Oh, and by the way, we made a VR game about fairies and flowers and
Miyazaki's directing both of the. He's directing Derasine, or however you say it, and Sekiro, which is interesting because that means
Michael Zaki?
Theoretically, Michael Zaki himself, theoretically, whatever's happened with Dark Souls and or Bloodborne is either a very small experimental team or very far away, which I think is really like, I love that. I don't want studios to just keep making sequels of the same thing over and over again. A new IP is so much more exciting.
Yeah, and Rory Powers from our UK office got to see the BCD demo of that, which was like actual like sit down gameplay, and he said that it was like really, really interesting, super action heavy, like more akin to Bloodborne, but not an RPG at all.
Oh,
and that the customization, it's an action game.
To be Activision,
and that the customization that is sort of the crux of that whole game is you can choose how to utilize that pulley arm. So like in that trailer, you see the character like popping out a shield like God of War, or using a grappling hook, or having like a battle axe pop out of it.
I think Lucy saw it too, because she said that to me too.
Lucy did. Lucy saw it.
Who wrote a preview?
Lucy.
Okay, so there's a preview up on IGN that you can check out that I haven't read yet, that I'm super interested in those details. Lucy was telling me there's like 5 variations that they saw in just that one demo of the things that you can do with that.
Lucy also has one of my favorite E3 stories of all time, which is that she interviewed Miyazaki for Derasine, and she, in the middle of that demo in the Sony booth, so we do, for people who don't know, we do these behind closed doors demos in these tiny little white rooms that like you step in and you sit down, and paneling from the wall in that room fell down in the middle of her interview and pulled all of the wires out and completely made it pitch black. And he was like, you can continue. And they just did the interview.
I love that so much. That's so Michael Zaki. She's wearing this terrible cat t-shirt.
She said she didn't know that she was going to interview Miyazaki that day, and is wearing like, it's like a picture of a kitten and it just says creeping. And she was so embarrassed by it. Yeah.
Oh,
amazing.
Let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2.
Hell yeah.
Let's do it.
So I have a piece up that's going to be a much more I'm gonna ramble. Sorry. I'm so obsessed with this game. Like I really got so much more excited watching the BCD than I expected to because it was the same. Much like Ghost of Tsushima, we saw the same demo that was shown on stage, but the things. And I talked to Anthony Newman and Kurt Martineau after, who are the two game directors, whereas Neil Druckmann is the creative director, and he's co-writing with Haley Gross. But Lucy has an incredible preview on IGN that is about kind of the story and why Ellie matters, and that's Neil and Haley talking about that. But I talked to Anthony and Kurt about playing it, like about how the combat works. And they brought up 300 things that I hadn't considered about how it's different now. And they talked about, they basically rebuilt everything under the hood for this game. It is not just like a retread of The Last of Us combat. They had to rethink so many different things about playing as her. They added a jump button. So traversal is very different and combat's much more vertical. Ellie, the lowest weapon she can have if you unequip everything is her knife. Like there's no, she doesn't just walk up and slug guys in the face. Like there's no punching in this because that's the point, right? She's not Joel, and like she's learned things from Joel and he inspires the way that she fights. But you have all these cool new mechanics, like in the demo where you pull the arrow out of your shoulder. That is a mechanic in the game that will affect different things about your health, that will affect your recovery. Crafting is back, but they really wanted to emphasize the ammo scarcity, so they've been doing like nonstop testing, and they kept talking about how they like really wanted to make sure that it made sense and you felt pressure but you were never screwed over. Little things like running and grabbing the bottle and throwing it all in one fluid motion.
That's
all
that was
part
the
of
moment
it.
I was like, it's so cinematic.
They talked about the grass when you're in Uncharted 4. They had stealth. You duck into vegetation, and it was binary. It was either you are hiding or you are not. And in this game, it's shades of gray. So because, especially in the demo, rather than fighting infected in that demo, you're fighting humans, and even more so than the humans in the first game. They call each other by name. They coordinate. They have this thing they're calling vague knowledge, which is they roughly know where you are, but they don't know exactly where you are, and they will team up to form a triangle, form a perimeter, and figure it out. Like the AI sounds so cool and
I
sophisticated.
don't like that one bit.
That was the thing.
Terrible.
That was the thing that like really wigged me out. Was like the encounter where Ellie is like sneaking through that building. It comes up after this if you're watching the video version. And she hides under the car. And one of the NPCs calls out. She's like, "Brad, I can't find, like, I don't know where she went." And he like, Ellie's hiding under the car, and her antagonist eventually ducks down and she shoots her. And then you hear the guy from off screen like, "Oh, Sarah!" And it's like, are these characters or are these just NPCs talking to each other? And like that level of interaction between NPCs, like
It's
it
so
adds such a
immersive.
gravity to what you're doing that it's like these are people that have been surviving in this world for months or years at this point, and it's like, okay, that sucks that I just shot this
and
one
when
in
you
the
think
head.
about-
It seems like it has more of a human focus and it's a lot less about zombies. Like we don't see a single zombie or clicker in this entire trailer, and that's why
shows.
I think I'm more interested in that side of it.
too.
I'm more interested in the humanity in The Last of Us. One thing I wanted to ask was the part where she goes onto the car. Do you know if that's scripted or is that like, can you actually hide in?
Yeah, everything. So one of her new abilities that Joel didn't have is she can squeeze between gaps and duck under stuff, basically, because she does have to be a lot more scrappy. So like that moment in the demo is definitely ultra scripted, but I do think that's an ability that you'll have. I do think that you'll be able to, because basically like for her, it's getting range and firing arrows, and it's hiding. And I think that's much different. I played The Last of Us 1 by mostly just going in, and obviously you play as Ellie in Left Behind, but they're doing a lot more. They really thought through making it different from that because she's older and she's learned more, but she's still vulnerable in ways Joel wasn't. The last thing I want to talk about that completely blew my mind, they have this thing, they're not the first studio to use it, but they seem to have kind of perfected it. It's this thing called motion matching. And what that means is if you play, especially older games like Uncharted 2, there's like a patrol path, and you can basically sit there and you know that this enemy will go in a 7 shape or in an L shape, or he'll go in a triangle or whatever it is. This is to avoid canned animations. It's sort of like a mesh of constantly learning from different things. So it'll basically have a bucket of 1,000 different animations they can call upon, and the people that you're fighting in any moment dynamically are just mixing and matching a bunch of those.
Whoa.
So that if you sit and watch someone for long enough, they theoretically aren't just going through the same movements all the time. They're actually animated in a way
Seems
that
like it would make
feels
stealth
This
so
really
difficult.
hard.
This
Yeah.
reminds me so much of hearing about Metal Gear Solid 2 before it first came out. Like hearing the guard AI and stuff and the stuff. And obviously people don't usually do such a deep dive on what's changed with AI and like, NPC behavior. But like that and the having analog ground cover, to be like if you're not in the bushes deep enough, then you stick out.
or if you're there for too long, they'll figure out that that's where you went. Like I think the way they're doing it, they really want to make sure that it never feels fake. And they talked about
I
how
love
things.
stealth games, and that is such a thing where 3 guards are chasing you, and then you hide in a cupboard, and they're like, "Huh." Must have been the breeze.
Exactly. Or even
sucks.
there's even that moment of like they don't even want it to feel like you aren't like, in other words, they would hand key certain animations in the last game where it's like, okay, like if you go through here, someone had to hand build an animation of climbing or hand build a run or whatever, and now those things are sort of behind the scenes happening almost dynamically and procedurally. They basically talked about how everything is modular. I don't know, I'm rambling a lot. You should definitely just read the thing I put up because seriously, like those guys are incredibly smart, and there's a reason that
director on it
Naughty
is
Dog
also really cool because The Last of Us Lost Legacy also had like the largest environment of any game that we'd seen in that
Uncharted.
series, and I know that's
Uncharted,
yeah. I said Last
Yeah.
of Us. Yeah, Uncharted Lost Legacy that we'd seen in that series, and I know that was a thing that he was really happy to have done. So I'm wondering if we're going to see huge environments again this time.
Definitely, yes. Like they were keeping a lot of that under wraps, and they really kept everything. All of our conversations, the context is the demo. Like they were very clear they're only talking about that. But man, that team is so smart and so good, and like there's a reason a lot of people think Naughty Dog is the best studio in the world, and they are unbelievably talented, and it makes me so excited for this game. And that's all separate from, you should also read the thing Lucy put up about Ellie and about character-wise, like that trailer is so powerful, and that moment at the end,
It's like
when
it's like a really, really important trailer.
and when she smiles, I think it made me realize
also a
in one
reference to
second how
Joel.
much I care about her.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah,
Just
they're
the
not
one-
talking about Joel at all, which
They
I think,
referenced him.
Barely, yeah, right at the
like
beginning.
your old man or
your old
whatever.
man
Yeah.
was always on my case about patrols. Like, here's the thing. I've been on this show before kind of knocking the idea of The Last of Us 2, and I'm like completely sold on the idea that they're doing things behind the scenes that no game has done before, and it looks mechanically like beautiful and gorgeous. This is the first event that I've been at, the first time that I've seen The Last of Us 2, that I've been like, okay, I'm slowly working my way to being 100% on board, but there's this thing in the back of my mind that the way that the first Last of Us ended was so pitch perfect to me that it still sort of tugs at me a little bit, that it's
Completely
like,
understand that.
like I don't necessarily know that I need a sequel to this game.
That's why I didn't watch Westworld season 2. It's
Yeah.
because I was like, but the first one was so perfect.
And
in that
so
ending.
I understand that that's sort of a kind of a narrow point of view, and I will 100% play this game,
The thing
and I'm
is,
sure that I'll
like,
enjoy
I
it.
get that concern because
Yeah.
like video games so often are desperate to be franchises, but
Yeah.
in this case, I just trust that team so much that
Yeah.
I totally understand that. It's like, this is one of the best video game endings we've ever had because it's concise and it ends and it's a punch and it's just done. But I trust them to like know that and know what they've done with that first game and be like, okay, well, here's what we're doing so that we don't minimize the impact of our ending.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about how I got to the end of Uncharted 4 and was like mostly lukewarm. Like, oh, this was fine. Like, this was an Uncharted game.
And then you got to play Crash
But then I
Bandicoot.
played. No, that happens at the beginning. But
At the end.
and the end. Yeah.
oh yeah, you're right. But and also you're right. But playing Lost Legacy was like, oh, this is also Uncharted, and this game is like so phenomenal. Like I really, really enjoyed Lost Legacy, and it made me think about like, okay, well, if I still enjoy Uncharted this much, like I'm sure that there's something in The Last of Us 2 that
Yeah.
will rekindle.
I'm fully done seeing like pre-promo stuff for this.
I
Like I just want to
completely
play it,
agree.
you know,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
kind of it. Is
Same about Spider-Man. Who's
Yeah.
like, even seeing it at the show was like, I didn't.
I think that's a little bit different because I mean, I love Spider-Man, but it's not as much like emotional resonance. You know, it's not like seeing this and being like, oh man, like this is like if the first time I saw somebody get disemboweled in The Last of Us was sitting down playing the game, I think it'd be a lot more powerful than seeing it on a press conference. You know, and that's just a problem with you know what we
Yeah,
do in
I mean,
games
there's
coverage in general.
So cinematic.
You can't just release a game and be like, here, we put the game out. Here it is in its entirety. You've seen nothing about it. You know,
I think with The Last of Us, they could, and it'd still sell well.
Yeah,
I think they could have.
You know,
I should also point out they talked about how everything you pick up, enemies can pick up. So it's like the idea is that like
You need to get your arrows.
you can get your arrows, but also like that you can pick up that pickaxe. If he's using a two-handed board, you can pick it up. But for him, it might be one-handed. For
So
you,
brutal.
it might be two-handed.
yeah.
There's a couple
really cool.
there's a couple of moments in Sony's press conference that really like lit the room up, just like in terms of like people like
Damn.
feeling like really uncomfortable. And the first one was that just awful transition between her and Dina kissing, and then like just the throat slitting, and then the second one was when Norman Reedus is pulling off his toenail in the.
I had like awful
In Death
nightmares
Stranding.
about that.
I
It was
forgot
great.
about that. I had blocked that from my
It was like
memory.
everyone in the room was just like, oh.
I think that we shielded our eyes. I think we
Yeah.
were like, oh.
Yeah.
I could hear it through the wall of our studio. I could hear the entire war room go, oh.
Yeah.
Man.
Just of note, Last of Us 2 and After Party from Night School, the only two demos that Disney XD dropped. So
Wonder why.
yeah, I don't understand why.
Yeah, let's talk about Spider-Man. I totally forgot to put anything in Death Stranding in here because I spend my mornings just obsessing over it and thinking about
Also,
it.
we just still have more questions.
We have so many questions.
And we've only seen like Death Stranding is the rare exception to we didn't see anything they didn't see. You know, like we didn't have any
true.
behind
We don't
closed
have more
doors. It
context.
wasn't on our show. Yeah.
Yeah.
When Beyond is coming together, like in the early planning of the show, Max or whoever's hosting that day will send out like a document like here, and it's like, hey, add your notes in for all this stuff. And under Spider-Man, get ready for the bleep. I just put because that game is fun
the
as
font
hell.
is bigger than it is for anything
Somebody
else.
did that.
The font
Somebody
is
did
larger.
that. Somebody did that after the fact.
I don't know how that. Yeah. No. So we were waiting to see our Last of Us demo, and it was kind of like after hours and things were kind of winding down at this little Sony press area, and I just saw this like you guys were all kind of hanging out like schmoozing or whatever, and I just saw this like open station that had Spider-Man. It was
I saw that you saw
press
that and
X,
was so jealous.
And I was like, tick, 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 and I just picked it up and just immediately started swinging around, and I was like, oh yeah, this is really good.
Swinging
This is so good. It just
perfect.
it feels so good.
So Zach and I were like sitting on the same chair playing it, and just like when you played it, you were just like, oh, and then I was like, I don't know, it looks cool, and then I did it, and I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
And there's
swinging is so good.
When you hit the top of an arc and let go, you do like a little backflip.
Yeah.
I was
It's
talking
so
to Brian
good.
Intihar, and he said there's way more of that. Like there are way more things you'll unlock of like little movements and
all
like,
I wanted to do was just swing in that
Yeah,
world
air
forever.
So-
ballet. It's so cool.
The demo itself was like you could only play 15 minutes and then the game just cuts you off. It's like, thanks for playing.
And it had boundaries. Too.
Yeah, and so Alanah and I were both waiting to play for a while, and so I was like, hey, let's just go halvesies on this demo. I'll play for half and then hand off the controller. And so like I was playing with headphones on, and I kept leaning over to her like, this is so fun. Like I felt guilty for having the controller for so long. And then Brian Intihar was watching us play, and I handed off the controller to Alanah and like took the headphones off, and she started playing, and he was like, you didn't want to do any of the story stuff or anything? And I was like, dude, I didn't have to. Like the swinging and combat alone sold me
So good.
100% on this game.
Yeah,
No, I
James
was-
Stevenson was standing behind me during mine and made fun of me because apparently the whole time I just had this big like eating grin like the
Yeah.
entire time.
Well, I mean,
No, I definitely was
Insomniac-
immediately-
It's so hard not to. Like
They're so good at traversal. Like,
Yeah.
Sunset Overdrive is still one of the best games in terms
Well,
of
and
traversal. But this builds on that. It's not just Sunset Overdrive. It's like it's way more than that.
you do stuff.
Spider-Man.
You do stuff that is so Spider-Man centric. Like one of my favorite things is like moving through the city. You reach this pace of like you're swinging, like you're running across a building, you're arcing up, jumping to the top of a building, running across. Like this momentum never really slows. And one of the ways that they do that is there's these natural things that Spider-Man as a character just does that in previous Spider-Man games it's like you wouldn't do. Like there's 2 water towers, and in a previous game you might swing into one and it'll totally stop your momentum, but in this game the technology is so advanced that like he notices those water towers and just like swings through them and then keeps swinging, and you're like, God
Or you slide
damn it,
under
that's
them.
cool.
I
I
Yeah.
mean, I'll be honest, a lot of the swinging physics did not make any sense. It was like, I should definitely have fallen on my face at that point, but I'm still swinging, but it doesn't matter because it's so much fun. It's like,
it makes spider sense.
No!
well, there's parts where you just like kind of shoot some webs and you're like, oh, I'm 50 feet up again. Cool.
The way you gather momentum feels so good because you keep like basically you're swinging with the triggers and you hit X and kind of propel yourself forward and gain speed, momentum, and height. And it is like you're totally right because there was a moment I was like, crap, I'm gonna collide with that building, and you just hit it and do a smooth
Oh, and
run.
you keep running, yeah.
Which like Spider-Man games have done. I think like Spider-Man 3 tried to do that a little bit, but it's just never looked and felt this perfect. Like the Activision Spider-Man games are
I like
special to me in a weird way because especially on PS2, like those games really like are the first time I really feel like I appreciate an open world, maybe even more so than in GTA.
Really cool combos too.
Yeah, for sure. But this is it is everything those games did times a trillion. Like
Yeah, well,
there's
this one
nothing
is-
about this that doesn't feel better.
This one is a game first, and that's it. It's a game, you know. And I think that the Activision ones always suffered from being like part of a fiscal calendar and being maybe to tie into a movie or like a holiday release. In this case, like I don't know. I think they're gonna finish this game and put it out when it's done, you know. And obviously, it's still part of Sony's fiscal calendar and everything.
Well,
but like,
that's the thing is like with exclusives like this, the reason that Sony's going to keep funding them forever is that it's a reason to own their hardware. So it's like they don't want to rush any of that stuff when they're getting people into their infrastructure and getting people to play for PlayStation Plus. Like it's a business move
a
that
great
it's like
point.
you need your games to be really good so
and
people will stay.
Even beyond like PlayStation, Sony owns the right to Spider-Man too. So it's
Yeah.
like why? Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
do it
they
right.
slapped that font right on the old PS3.
Hell yeah, they did. That was a Ken Kutaragi
Hey,
call. He's like,
let me actually. We have somebody, a fan wrote in from the show. It's Barrett, our producer Barrett, and he
Barrett.
said, "I love it. Swinging feels great. Stealthing and punching bad boys is awesome. I'm convinced the secret villain at the end of the E3 demo is actually the cop lady friend, and she's a female reimagination of Doc Ock or Goblin." Interesting
Right?
take,
Got weird
Barrett.
at the end there, but before that, I agree.
Joshua Yell, our senior comics editor, put up a really, really good piece kind of going through who he thinks that last villain is. And man, it's interesting. He has a lot of really solid theories. I totally think it's Green Goblin. I think they've teased Osborn too much for it not to be. But he had a really good point that the guys writing this game actually wrote a very famous Doc Ock arc in the comics, and it would make a lot of sense. And he lays out a lot of very good reasons for who he thinks it is.
I'm glad we saw a lot of villains in this trailer, but like when we were doing our pre-show, I was just like, I want to see the open world swinging, and I want to see the villains, and we got both of those. But I did want to say before we move on to the next topic that the actual combat is way harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It is not just a series of QTEs; it's a lot of management. Your
a lot
Spidey
like
sense.
Arkham.
It is a lot like Arkham.
Yeah.
Your Spidey sense goes off when someone's like going to be shooting at you, so it's like, okay, bullets will kill you really quickly, and they really do. So you have to like figure out how to dodge. I didn't use my abilities as much as I should have.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so cool. The gadgets. So you have it's a lot to take in at once, but you have a context menu with, I think it's which one, the sticks, that you pull up a gadget menu.
I think it's just
and then
L1.
it gives you might be
L1,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, you pull up like a wheel, basically like a gadget wheel that almost reminded me of Mass Effect 1. And like you pick your thing and like
Totally is like Mass Effect 1. That's really funny.
It's a smart, different twist than I expected. Also, the way you use the environment is cool. Like any manhole cover or car door or
It feels
anything.
very Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah, totally. You pull on it and then you just swing it around and it feels so good.
And I will say before we move off, one of the coolest openings to any demo I've ever seen. Like Spider-Man is just hanging out against a wall with his mask up on a cell phone and just says press X to start, and you hit X, and he pulls his mask down and just jumps off the wall, and then you're just free falling, and then it's like, oh, press R2 to swing,
It's
and then
same as God of War.
all
like
of a
how that
sudden
game
you're
starts,
just
it's
swinging.
like,
it's
I know.
so
I kind
good.
of like the whole take on this Peter Parker is that he's been doing this for a while and he's really experienced. So I kind of want that to be how the game begins, because there's no origin story. You don't need anything more than that.
Well, you see, Peter Parker was just a mild-mannered high school
Did
student.
anything happen with his like parents or his like uncle or anything like that? Like, what's going on with his parental unit situation?
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Yeah,
Actually,
It's a real mystery.
Funny story. Funny side note. I watched Amazing Spider-Man 2 on a plane,
Ah.
and that opens with Peter Parker's father dying in a plane crash. If you watch it on a plane, it just ends.
Yeah.
Like he goes diving towards a laptop, and he's fighting with the laptop, and then it just cuts to the Amazing Spider-Man, and I was like, well, if I hadn't seen this film before, I'd be very confused
Also,
at the state
one
of that
my
man.
my genuine favorite thing in that film is the weird subplot about Aunt May has a job and she's like a nurse or something, but she's like hiding it from Peter. There's some weird thing, and it's only brought up 3 times in the clumsiest, weirdest. It's like they wanted Sally Field to have something to do, and it's so uncomfortable
Turns
every
out,
time.
Give her a
that's
job.
turns out that's a bad movie.
Yeah, it's not a
I
great
love
movie.
that movie. It's not good, but I really enjoy it.
It's fine. My favorite game's Deadly Premonition.
Really, really quick. I promise I won't go full ramble on this, but I forgot to put it on the doc, but I did play Kingdom Hearts 3. Did anyone else play that demo?
No.
Really good. It
Oh, what?
feels
3 trailers
What's
for
it
Kingdom
all
Hearts
good.
3?
Yeah,
Did
one
they-
in every conference.
Does
It's crazy.
Does it have sound effects?
Yes, it has sound effects. It does.
burn.
I'm sorry.
know-
I've thought about that. The part where she just throws like the ice blast and it just doesn't make a noise. I've gone back
And when
and
Hercules is trying to lift that rock, and
it's just I don't know, like that in the trailer for the Tom Cruise Mummy movie where they forgot to add noises is just something that makes me just like
It's
break.
unsettling.
I said something about it on Twitter, and somebody tweeted back at me and was like, I really liked that there were no sound effects. It really helped me focus on the story. And I was like, you are wrong.
when you see it coming and it's just covered by music, it's not that weird. It just felt weird in the context of that conference when no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that weird when you watch the trailer. I think it's just a music
I didn't
track
notice
playing.
until someone else pointed it
Yeah,
out.
like
to be fair.
I really don't
I
think
did.
it's
I
that
turned around
weird.
to you and I was like, why are there no sound effects? And
think you will-
I
that's
think I
when I
kind
was
of
like,
ruined the trailer for you. Yeah.
But from everyone that I've spoken to who's actually played it, they said that the gameplay feels
thing, it
incredibly fluid.
Feels so good.
It
And,
looks
like,
really good.
What we played. So Jonathan played an hour and a half of the game. I just played an
Jonathan likes
abbreviated.
Kingdom Hearts?
I know, right? This was an abbreviated 15-minute version of that demo. It was actually 2 demos. The first one was in Toy Box, which is the Toy Story world, obviously, and it has the cutscene where you meet the Toy Story crew, which I think is in one of the trailers. Very, very cute. But once you get to combat, you have we had 3 different Keyblades, the new transforming Keyblades. We had Tangled, Monsters Inc., and then of course the Toy Story one, and like. It's really cool. Like it feels like a way modernized version of that game. There's also really cool finishers for each one of them. And then you also have a special move, these attractions. We had like the Pirates of the Caribbean one with like the huge rocking boat. It feels like a summons in Final Fantasy, honestly. Like
That's
it
cool.
is such a crazy epic way to end a battle. And then we went
How does
in,
the fighting, like, how does the combat feel if you were to compare it to another game? Because to me, it doesn't really look like Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2.
No, I mean a little like that's definitely there, but it does. It feels much more free and action RPG esque. And like full disclosure, it's been a very long time since I played Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2.
Like I want to say the combat even kind of made me think of like Final Fantasy 15. Like
it totally does.
Yeah.
Like and ironically, Final Fantasy 15, especially in that first demo they released, the Luminous demo, reminded me of Kingdom Hearts. So it's like it's definitely that sort of Tomb Raider, Uncharted, ever flowing Ouroboros. Yeah, this definitely feels
almost
to
like
me.
they're made by the same company.
Yeah, this one feels to me though like sorry to interrupt. The end of that demo, you get these mech suits basically is the way the Toy Story thing ends, and it is so different and cool. It just feels like you can switch between 3 different mechs and they each have a different, like one of them has missiles and one of them has like a heavy punch, and it just
That rules.
felt awesome. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
I'm so torn on that game because like I'm not a Kingdom Hearts guy, as I've cracked jokes about it before.
Easy.
That game looks incredible. It looks phenomenal, and I'm just and on the one hand I'm like, man, I'm bummed that I can't get into that, and on the other hand I'm like, that looks like a massive game. That's one less thing for me to.
So we're gonna
stress
like
out
make
about
any
not playing.
Kingdom Hearts fans mad, but I will say like most casual players, like I played 1 and 2 and that's all I played.
Same.
And the reason that I want to play 3 is like the same reason I enjoyed 1 and 2 isn't for the deep story lore. It's just that it's so fun to like play that style of game with all
and
these
it's
Disney properties.
gorgeous.
It's just
really,
so much fun.
Now that there are Pixar worlds in it, but especially
to hang
it's
out
been
with
a
Woody?
decade. It looks like a Pixar movie. Like it looks better than older Pixar movies. It is absolutely
saying a whole lot.
crazy, but it just looks
Yeah.
like it really like not having played one of those games since PS2. Like it really is crazy how good it looks, and it was really fluid. The other demo was sort of like a boss fight demo in Olympus, and
That's the one on the train.
yeah,
that looks bonkers.
And the train is an attraction. That's just a finishing move.
Oh, no
that's
way.
not like
I thought that was the whole level.
Yeah,
no,
me too.
the level is you're fighting. You're like it's this huge like rock golem, and you're attacking his legs, and you slowly work your way up, and then like if you time it right, you do the train interaction right at the very end. It's just so. I really had so much more fun playing that demo than I expected to have. It made me so jazzed to play the full game.
That's
awesome.
That's January 2019.
January 29th.
February 22nd.
No.
Can you believe it? Yeah, crazy.
January 29th.
Now we talked about a lot of games that are not out yet, but what about the games that are out yet? You guys playing anything right now?
Yeah, the Assassin's Creed Odyssey trailer and so Ubisoft was my favorite press conference I think this year.
They nailed it.
They really showed a lot of cool stuff. And
My favorite moment from any of the press conferences in general was when the
Just
Beyond
Dance
Good and Evil
opener,
team
where that was like
comes
9
off
minutes
stage,
long.
and you hear them sing because they didn't turn their mics up.
nailed
We nailed it. We nailed it.
yeah,
so
that was
cute.
good.
So good.
The Assassin's Creed Odyssey trailer just really got me stoked for Assassin's Creed, but then also reminded me that I'd only played like the opening hours of Origins. And so coming off of E3 and just like hiding in my room and recovering for 2 days this weekend, I did nothing but play Assassin's Creed Origins. And that game is we were talking about
we
it on
went to brunch.
Sunday. Yeah, we went to brunch. And well, that's it. Yeah. In the 2 hours that I took a break to get brunch with you guys, like I did nothing but play Origins, and it's just a game that like layers more and more awesome shit on top of
really
it.
good.
It's really, really good. And it, like the funny thing about it is like I played a lot of like the first 2 Assassin's Creed games, and then kind of sat them all out except for Syndicate. I played Syndicate.
Syndicate's great.
But the whole time that I'm playing this game, every time I do something really cool, I'm like, I can't believe this is Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Because it feels like The Witcher to me or
Because,
something.
like,
Yeah.
Feels like Metal Gear
romance
Witcher.
in,
Yeah.
in Odyssey is like I'm so stoked about. that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
really leaning hard into that RPG thing now, and I think it's really
I
cool.
mean, this game is just an RPG.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
it's crazy
Origins
how
is
much
add-on.
how much of an RPG it is to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
I mean, I get that there's a lot of that conversation happening right now where it's like, well, every game has RPG elements. Like, no, straight up, this is just an RPG. Like,
Yeah, it is an RPG.
Yeah, I was really sad I never got into this because I was actually really
Great news. You
diehard.
can still play it.
Well, I was really diehard into Assassins, but I just got disappointed so many times. Like I loved
I
1 and
didn't
2.
play Syndicate.
I played
Syndicate's
Brotherhood.
so
I
good.
know, but I'm not gonna
Didn't
play
like Revelations. 3 bummed me out, and then I kind of fell off. And Syndicate was the one that got me back
You didn't
into
play
it.
Black Flag?
I hate the naval combat. I know I'm alone in that. I think the ship combat sucks. It's my least favorite, and it's in every game now. It's in every Assassin's Creed.
It's
game
in
now.
this one,
and
They
it's
said-
really
I
good.
know.
in
They
this
said
one,
this
yeah.
one in a damn desert, and they were
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you ready to ride boats? Here's a flashback."
only do it
That
twice.
honestly turns me off. Like I know I'm the only one on Earth, and I've gotten so much shit from people about it, but I just never enjoyed that boat combat
You're
at
allowed
all.
to not like stuff.
it's okay.
Bum me out, man.
No, I think with
love boats.
Assassin's Creed games, you
I'm
got
the boat
to.
guy.
Mr. Boat.
Yeah, we call you that.
I think with
Yeah.
with AC games, you kind of got to treat it like comic book runs, where you got to kind of just wait a second and hear what the buzz is. You know, I mean, I'm not saying even reviews because I feel like out the gate there's always that sort of initial like, this is a good game, and then 3 months pass and people are like, Yeah, the one before it was better though. You know, like if you just kind of wait a year and then they're on sale and everything. Like, I mean,
I think playing Origins right now is super smart.
Because there's like an additional 30 hours of DLC.
And there's nothing else coming out in June,
Origins
so you're good.
is definitely awesome. I'm like really interested in Odyssey.
Yeah.
Like I'm just,
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not usually wild about Greek stuff, but
Yeah.
I do like.
Did they give us a release date for it?
For Odyssey, yeah, it's October something.
God, that's crazy.
October 22nd.
No, it's October.
But if it's too close to
beginning of
Red
October, I
Dead,
think.
like
I
I
think
want to play both of those
it's
I mean, I think it's
games.
gonna be before. Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna finish it then.
But that's the thing. Assassins, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Red Dead. There's so much in October. That's not even naming everything. That month is insane.
And then also the Destiny 2 Forsaken trailer.
Looks good.
Kate 6, R.I.P. But got me back
I
into.
believe
I
that.
know.
That's insane.
Yeah, got me back into Destiny, and Destiny is like a terrible ex-girlfriend that hits you up when you're drunk and is like, "Hey, you up? And you want to grind some?"
You're like, "Yeah."
And you're like, "Yeah, I definitely want to grind." So yeah,
I don't like that at all.
Love
I
that
think that's
metaphor.
great.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think that was excellent.
I've been wanting to talk about this forever. Not forever, a few weeks now. Vampire.
since the dawn of time, the vampire race.
for hundreds of years. No, I've been playing a bit of Vampire, the Dontnod game that came
I believe
out.
it's pronounced Vampire.
Vampire.
Also, just don't nod. Just say don't nod.
It is Don't Nod. I asked.
Don't Nod.
And they say it don't
I
nod.
asked
Yeah.
them. They
Whatever the
You
hell they're-
started this don't nod
These-
thing. You're
all
the
right.
one who started this.
These French
not me.
people made a game about the fang men of the night who do the biting of the neck.
pronounced
okay?
don't nads.
Whatever it is, the don't nads. I don't know what you call. Anyway, this game
It
is.
doesn't look like a Don't Nod game. It's crazy.
This game is. What does that mean? Because they made Remember Me and they made Life is Strange.
yes,
cool.
and it doesn't look like those.
Yeah, I mean, this one is. So basically, the setting is it's 1918 London, and there's the Spanish influenza outbreak. So there's like piles of dead people in the street. It's very moody and creepy, and you are a vampire, but you're also a doctor, and so like. This is
Dr. Acula?
it is a Dr. Acula game. It is straight up. That is exactly what it is. But you have to go out in the night, and the combat is like Bloodborne-ish. It's definitely not as like punishingly difficult, but
I heard it's
similar.
It's actually fairly easy.
That's the thing is you bite people and you get XP by eating people.
Nice.
And
it's like real life.
Like prototype.
the whole thing though is you're a doctor. You're not supposed
prototype.
to eat people. You're supposed to sort of behave yourself. So it does the whole sort of BioWare like morality system thing.
Oh, cool.
It's definitely like it's not perfect, but
I heard it's really buggy.
I haven't encountered really any bugs.
Okay, you and Brandon said that, but I've just seen people on the internet, which is a
right.
very reliable source, talking
right.
about it being buggy, and I'm curious, like, if it's a platform specific bugs, like maybe people on PC are having problems, or
Some bugs are good bugs though.
that is true, but
I
it's not
did-
like game breaking like crashes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
'Cause I
I've
did see a herd of
He's a
I did
doctor.
see a herd of gazelle just like running through the sky in Assassin's Creed Odyssey the other day. Or
my dog in Fallout 4
Origins.
got stuck in buildings a lot, and I was a big fan of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I started Fallout 4 twice, got 10 hours in.
Okay,
two
so
different game breaking
Vampire
bugs.
was the game that I was playing that I was trying to
They were
recommend
running
to
through the
people,
sky
'cause
like this.
Good lord. No, I don't know. It's just it's a neat. I feel like Don't Nod does a lot of stuff where they are really ambitious with like systems and they want to try a whole lot of stuff. And in this case, is the first time where I'm like, ooh, you have my attention. This is interesting.
This game has been such a big question mark for such a long time.
And this was our biggest game of the show
so
at E3.
yeah,
what, 2 years ago?
2016.
Really?
Well, yeah. So I book all of our appointments on the live show, and I booked this game on 2016 just as like, okay, sure, bring this weird game on, it's fine. And then it did like a hajillion views in VOD, and we were like, whoa, what
People
is
care about
this?
it.
Yeah, and turns out people love a good vampire.
I don't-
And but everything that we've seen of it has had this sort of like, well, that looks a little janky, or that's a little weird, but this is pretty cool.
Is
and
that
so
you?
yeah, here I am.
And actually, the guy in it does look
titular
a lot like-
vampire.
This is Dr. Acula, Dr. Zacula, really. But no, yeah, I told you that. I came into work after playing this, and I was like, hey, Zach, you're probably going to get some weirdos on the internet tweeting photos of this vampire at you because he kind of
Barrett has paused it.
The fact that he's paused it
He's
makes
trying-
me
yeah,
think
he's
he's trying to
do
put your
something
face on it,
weird,
isn't he?
yeah.
I know you, Barrett.
yeah.
I know what you're about.
No, I definitely.
But they're also working on that Twin Mirrors game,
Yeah.
which I'm super interested in because it looks like Deadly Premonition. Nailed
I love
it.
how these-
Straight in your face a little bit. Why?
I don't know
back
how
over
cameras
that.
work.
If you're listening to the audio, I'm sorry, and if you're watching the video, I'm also sorry because Zach is now in the Vampire Man. No, I think it's just
jeez.
I really respect that they took the time to tinker with this and make this whole weird system. It's weirdly complex because you go around and in the same way that you're trying to like build like a connection with people in Mass Effect 2, and you're like I'm gonna go and get to know these people and we're really gonna get tight. In this case, you do that because the healthier they are, the more valuable their blood is. So you're like, oh, you're feeling bad. You want cold medicine? You want to, and you give them the medicine, and you're like, oh, how's your life? And you get to know them. You unlock these hints and find their backstory, and then you're like, I have maxed out your blood, and now I will bite you in the neck and become more powerful.
Maximum blood.
Yeah. All right. We're getting all very too much silly.
I
Andrew,
also-
what are you playing?
Sorry guys, I'm in the show in a couple months, so of course I'm gonna talk about Persona. I played the Persona dancing games that came out. I played them in English at E3, but I also imported them on Vita and got the platinum in both because I'm me. Those games are really fun. If you like those games, the Persona games, it's perfect fan service. You get to see all the characters again. They interact in weird, funny ways.
Fan service?
They're really cute.
Dance service.
Nice.
Dance Stapleton service.
Nice.
There's no story mode in them. So if you played Persona 4 dancing and were turned off by like the bajillion hour long visual novel that I really liked, but a lot of people
Yeah,
hated.
that was the thing. Is like it bummed me out. Like I loved the visual novel stuff
Yeah,
in
me
Persona
too.
4 Dancing All Night, and then when you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't have any of that, I was like, well, then what do I want to play it
So
for?
this replaces it with this really
You can
fascinating.
dance all night.
Yeah.
This one does this weird. It's almost like Danganronpa. Honestly, it's a first-person exploration thing where you have social links 1 through 8, and once you get people to 5, you
Now
get
Max
to
is doing a giggle.
explore. You get to explore their living space in this weird like first-person way where you like interact with the environment. And I know it's a weird game,
Go
but
through all
it's,
their drawers and stuff.
it is. They're coming here. They announced them for early 2019. I'm very curious to see how they sell them here because I feel like no one in America is going to buy a Persona 3 game.
Yeah,
Is that what
it's-
you were laughing at?
It's a little dated, a Persona 3 game at this point.
But yeah, for people like P5, if you like the soundtrack and if you want to buy one of the last Vita games, it's probably going to come to the
Yeah.
US. I would highly recommend this. It's on PS4 also, though.
What are you playing?
Oh, Witcher 3.
Ah,
I started
nice,
playing it like a
nice.
month and a half ago, and I'm.
God, I should try
Do
again.
you start a new file or?
Yep.
Cool.
Started
So good,
completely from
Andrew.
top, and I love it.
I mean, my thing is, I don't like Skyrim, but I like Fallout. And
Me too.
for me, like, I
think
never
you'd
liked
like Witcher.
I never liked The Witcher, but I feel like Cyberpunk is my tech answer to the because I don't like fantasy games. Like, I just don't get into.
Okay. What about
It's not
fairy
really
tale
a fantasy
games?
game.
What about fairy tale games? Not fantasy, but fairy tale.
I don't know. You just played a
Fable?
shitload of Kingdom
Like,
Hearts.
I like
so-
Fable. That's true.
Okay, if you play The Witcher and you pretend that you are the sort of the woodsman from fairy tales, like the guy who's just the
Yeah.
woodsman, that's who you are.
Have you
And
tried
play
The
it.
Witcher?
Yeah, I played like 4 hours of it and
Okay,
just didn't.
that is probably-
You got
I
it.
want to
opening-
jump in further. Like, I was trying to cram it in for Game
It
of the Year.
sucks to say this about any game, but when you're like, oh yeah, 15 hours in, it really picks up. But like, The Witcher is
Final
one of those
Fantasy
games.
13.
Like honestly, I've invested well over 250 hours in The Witcher, and it's one of those things where like those first 15 hours, yeah, it was like a slog, but like
so
I'll try
silly.
again.
it gets
'cause
so good.
I love it from the top, but I don't feel like it's a fantasy game in the same way that Skyrim is, in that it is the characters in The Witcher feel a lot more grounded to me.
Yeah.
Like in that, sure, they have insane magical abilities, but I feel like Geralt is just like kind of a dude who's like, all right, I got a
also-
job to do, man.
He's
What
like
do you
a
got
really-
for me?
he's a-
All right, I'll help you out, whatever.
He's a really likable guy.
I like
such
him a lot.
I'm a whiny brat, and I got a 360 or a Xbox One copy from the office, and I put a few hours in. And like, I really want to. If I restart it, I really want to do it on PS4 because I'd rather get the trophies.
That's okay. We respect,
respect that a
here
lot.
on the
Yeah.
PlayStation.
So I think,
show.
I should pick it up because the Cyberpunk demo blew me away so much that I do feel like obviously I want to
So
see what they do.
after all of my hype going into Witcher 3, there was actually a period early on where I was like, oh God, is this going to disappoint me? Because the opening area, like it starts you in this sort of small town area where you learn a few of the mechanics and it's like
Yeah.
a tutorial
Get into a
hub kind of
boss
thing.
fight.
And it's like, there's a bunch of cool stuff there, but at the same time, I was trying to complete this whole area and I was like, God, I hope this isn't the whole game.
And that's
So
what
I
I didn't
thought-
like about it. It was not. It
And
wasn't
Assassin's
this
Creed Origins is the
huge,
same thing.
expansive,
Yeah.
crazy thing. I was just like, I'm just in this little town.
I
Like,
thought
it
that
gets
first
way
area in The Witcher 3 was the whole map. So I spent so much time in those opening hours just going to every question mark and every blip on the map and
Yeah.
doing whatever activity was there. And then I hit a quest where they're like, oh yeah, you got to go over there now. And I was like, oh, there's a
an
whole
over
other
there?
part of this map. Like, yeah, so that was my bad.
It's a great game.
yeah,
I'll try again.
I think Jonathan Dorbush is also playing.
He's playing it right
PS3.
now, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm
Plus
so
you
happy
can-
everyone's playing The Witcher.
You can ride on horsebacks and just lob people's heads off. It's so dope.
Yeah, and your horse will climb a building by mistake or whatever.
You can also just there's like a
Roach is
Roach.
There's
kinda
Roach.
sucky.
He's not the smartest horse
he's
in
not-
games.
he's
Yeah,
not great.
Like riding the mounts in Assassin's Creed, where you can just like they'll run right past you. You hit a button, jump on it, and then you're like, okay, go to the destination, and it just takes you there. It's so funny to think about The Witcher because Roach is just like, what?
I've had
Where are we
some
going?
like passive aggressive moments with Roach where I'm like, "Wait, Roach, where are you, Roach?" And
Yeah.
then it's just like I can see the blip and he's just like stuck on something. I'm like,
still
"Roach,
not
you,
as bad
you
as-
drunk idiot."
He's still not as bad as any horse in Zelda in Breath of
Yeah.
the Wild, where it's like, your
Yeah.
dumb horse couldn't hear you.
Shout of the Colossus, dude. Like
Or
in that
Skyrim,
remake.
or even like Assassin's Creed 3, like the horses in that.
Roach just got elevated to like number 2 horse.
no Roach Roach is pretty great. You say he's a drunk idiot. One time I was in like Novigrad and I was like, Roach, where are you? And he just walked out of a bar and I was like, my
Idiot
man.
confirmed.
Someone's giving the horse beer. Good stuff. You can lead a horse to a bar, but you can't make him drink unless he feels like
he's
getting
Roach.
hammered.
Guys, we did it. The first podcast.
We did it. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we
wants to get out of this room.
we're gonna go. We all have to pee. Thank you all so much for listening to our wonderful show or watching it. We're of course on all the things. You can find us on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. He's Garfep. He's Zacharias D. And she's Charl Anazard. I'm the only one who uses my real name on the internet.
It was a smart idea. I
what
regret
a
not doing
rube.
that. So.
Yeah, we've got more stuff coming up on IGN. So just keep an eye out. We're tired. We love you. Thank you for sticking with us through our rambly post
tight.
nonsense.
We love you.
Yeah, and then that is the end of the show. Beyond.
Beyond.